When you've spent a few $100s on a cheap, no-name UPS and then watch the lights flicker during a storm, the regret hits fast. Those budget units often promise backup power, but end up giving you a few seconds of jitter before everything shuts down. So the big question is whether splurging on something like the APC 2200VA Smart UPS actually feels like a smarter buy. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk through why this particular model might be worth the extra spend or why you could still walk away. First off, the core need for a UPS in a server or networking rack is simple: keep the equipment alive long enough to either finish a critical task or shut down cleanly. The APC 2200VA gives you 1980 watts of pure Sinewave output, which is enough to keep a modest rack of servers, a couple of switches, and a small storage array humming for roughly 10 to 15 minutes under typical load. That's not just a marketing number. It's the difference between losing a half-finished database transaction and having a clean shutdown script run without interruption. What sets this unit apart from the cheaper alternatives is the built-in automatic voltage regulation, or AVR. In my experience with older, linear-type UPSs, when the grid voltage dips or spikes, the UPS either drains its battery faster or, worse, lets the voltage pass straight through to the connected gear. The APC's AVR smooths out those fluctuations before they ever reach your equipment, which means the battery lasts longer during an actual outage, and you avoid the wear and tear that comes from constant voltage hunting. For a data center or a small office that sees regular brownouts, that's a practical advantage you can feel day after day. Another feature that feels less like a gimmick and more like a genuine time saver is SmartConnect. It's a cloud-based monitoring portal you can reach from a laptop or smartphone, and it doesn't require you to set up a separate network card or software suite. Once you register the UPS, you can see real-time load percentages, battery health, and receive email alerts the moment the unit switches to battery mode. For admins who manage multiple racks across different rooms, having a single dashboard that pings you before a server goes dark can prevent a cascade of issues, especially when you're on call overnight. Installation is where the rubber meets the road for a Rackmount UPS, and the 2U form factor with included rails makes the APC fairly straightforward to slot into a standard 19-inch rack. The rails lock in place without needing extra tools, and the front panel stays accessible even when the unit is mounted deep in a rack. I've seen cheaper rack units that sit on the floor, forcing you to reach around cables each time you need to replace the battery. With the APC, you can pull the front panel forward, swap the battery, and slide the unit back without unplugging anything else. That kind of convenience translates into less downtime during maintenance windows. Now, let's talk about who should actually consider this UPS. If you run a small to medium-sized server room, host a few virtualization hosts, or even have a home lab with a handful of network appliances that you can't afford to lose, the 2200VA capacity hits a sweet spot. It's also a good fit for audio-visual setups that rely on clean Sinewave power to avoid hum or distortion. Think video editing rigs or live streaming gear. On the flip side, if you're looking to back up a single desktop PC or a modest home office router, you'll be overpaying for capacity you'll never use. In that scenario, a 750VA or 1000VA unit would meet the need at a lower price point. There are a few practical trade-offs you'll notice once the UPS is in service. The first is weight. At nearly 70 pounds, the unit isn't something you'll want to move around after it's installed. That's a minor inconvenience if you have a permanent rack, but if you're on a rolling cart or need to reconfigure your rack layout often, you'll need a second pair of hands. Secondly, while the pure Sinewave output is a boon for sensitive equipment, it does mean the unit draws a bit more power from the wall compared to a simulated Sinewave model of similar rating. In a facility where energy efficiency is measured to the penny, you'll see a modest increase in your baseline power draw. Battery life is another realistic consideration. APC rates the internal battery for about 3 to 5 years under typical conditions, but that's an estimate based on normal temperature and discharge cycles. If your environment runs hot or you experience frequent short outages that drain the battery often, you'll start seeing capacity fade sooner. The good news is the UPS has a replaceable battery pack, and the SmartConnect portal will warn you when the health drops below a safe threshold, giving you enough lead time to order a replacement without scrambling during an outage. One hidden strength that isn't on the spec sheet is the noise level. Many rack-mount UPSs